Okay, everybody, part 5 of our series here on awakening the Jewish spirit, following the signs. We're getting closer to those signs. This is the last prelude till we get to the signs of awakening this Jewish spirit, whatever that means. So up until this point, as the response to everything that's happened, we discussed anti-Semitism, the need to feel that pain, the need for all of us as well to take that pain and remain hopeful, to decide that we want to stand out as Jews as opposed to hiding, the importance of loving life, appreciating life, loving being Jewish, appreciating our Jewish identity, our relationship to God and other people, giving, being givers in all of this, uniting as one people. All of these sort of big ideas we've discussed as a response, which are important and crucial and meaningful. And lastly, on the sort of big overarching response, we're going to talk about shining the light. After shining the light, we're then going to get into the signs, what it means to follow the signs from the context of this series. And we're going to learn a lot about that. And it's going to be, I hope, very interesting and meaningful. Before we get into following the signs, let's discuss shining the light. We had previously discussed in a prior episode that we have all this persecution starting all the way from the beginning, and how from each of these persecutions, there's been some sort of rejuvenation, some sort of rectification, some sort of response of the Jewish people to their circumstances to make things better and bigger and deeper. And of course, we don't want those things in the first place. But if God forbid they happen, our response is always to double down on our identity, to double down on the wisdom and the depths of who we are. Up until modern history, so looking here at the era of Nazis, Soviets, and the Arab persecution and expulsion, that early to mid 20th century, which culminated, of course, in the Holocaust, that experience, the response that we had was the building up of the land of Israel. And that's the last thing that we got to. And I put a big question mark here, like, what's next? What's next? We've built this land. Of course, it's always a work in progress. We're always trying to be better. But what is next for us? We're here now trying to figure that out. This latest incarnation of Hamas, Hezbollah, Iran, all of the proxies necessitates a response that is unlike anything else before. We cannot just expect to just do the land of Israel the way that we've been doing it. That's not how we're going to respond to this. And that's what I want to get into today. So on this spirit of returning to the land, in the Kriyat Shema, the prayers and blessings that we say before saying the Shema Yisrael, we ask Hashem, we say, V'havienu l'shalom be'arba kinfos ha'aretz, v'solichenu k'mimus le'artzenu. Bring us to peace from the four corners of the earth and lead us k'mimiyut le'artzenu, lead us upright to our land. He discusses, and I learned this from the Shirim of Rav Shlomo Katz in Shirat David or Efrat, that there are two stages of this kumimiyut, this being brought upright to our land. The first stage is komot haguf, which is the body of Israel. That's our physical return. All the Nevi'im, all the prophets talking about us coming back from the land to the land of Israel, from the four corners of the world. This is a miracle, a nace that we have a hard time comprehending because it's just a part of our world. Whereas if 200 years ago, in the places that we were living all across the globe, if you were talking to your family and saying, like, when's this time that all these people are going to come flying from the four corners of the world back into Israel, you would think you're talking about the Messianic era, the Mashiach. It would sound as remote. And of course, we believe with full heart and we wait every day for Mashiach, but it would sound like something abstract, something so far from anything we've experienced because it's been thousands of years. It's hard for us to even comprehend that. In fact, I think as far as I remember, some of the communities from Ethiopia, they read because there's an idea of al kanfei nesharim, that we're going to come back to Israel on eagle's wings. And they interpreted, when they got to the land of Israel, they interpreted it as, oh my gosh, I'm just coming on an airplane on eagle's wings back into the land. It felt very prophetic. It was also kind of sad, apparently, as I understand, because they thought that it couldn't be anything other than the Mashiach, that it couldn't be anything other than the temple was still going to be there or the rebuilt temple was going to be there. There was no sense that we would be coming back in an unredeemed world. But that's part of the progress of coming back to Israel. It's komot haguf. This is the opportunity that we have had for the last 75 years to survive, not only to survive, to cement ourselves in this land, to build and to grow in all sorts of sectors, from tech startups, the startup nation, to drip irrigation, everything in farming and medicine, and all the kind of advances that we have had. And similarly in the diaspora, since the war, essentially, we have had, we talk about the Nobel Prize winners in science. We have the Einsteins and we have the Kraus's, and for, I think it was just the theoretical physics, the Big Bang Theory. Was it Krauss? I'd have to ask my Zadie. Whatever it is, psychology, Aaron Beck, Viktor Frankl, meditation and mindfulness, John Kabat-Zinn, economics, Tversky and Kahneman, you name it. There's been an incredible contribution of the Jewish people, both in the land of Israel, in terms of the building of all sorts of sectors, thriving area in the Middle East, and then, of course, in the diaspora of just being leaders in all sorts of fields, Jews thriving. That's us as our body, cementing ourselves as a presence, both in the land and beyond the land, but particularly in the land of Israel, the startup nation feel. And there's a lot to be proud about of what we've been able to accomplish in the last 75 years. But this is not the primary contribution of the Jewish people. Every culture, civilization, hopefully, has something to contribute to this world. The Jewish people, whatever we contribute as extra in the areas that we just have discussed now, that's amazing. That's sort of a Kiddush Hashem, sanctifying God's name. Of course, it's wonderful, but it's not the essence of who we are. It's not the essence of the Jewish people and the Jewish mission in the world. Our Komot HaNeshama, the other part of us being led upright, is that we're supposed to be a people of Neshama, a beacon of wisdom, morality, and goodness, becoming light. This is the Jewish people. We have a Torah. That's our contribution is our spirituality. That is uniquely us in this world. Of course, there are other spiritual traditions. I'm not saying that there are not, but particularly ones that say we're coming with the message from Hashem. We're the original bearers of this. We have this contribution to humanity, and there's been lots of religions and offshoots of religions that have been inspired by the light of the Jewish people. But this is who we are in our land, especially. So the response, of course, since for the last 75 years has been, I would say, the body, right? The land and the body of Israel, right? That's our body. But what does the body need? It needs its soul. We've cemented ourselves into the land as the body, and now we need to awaken the soul. And of course, there's been awakenings of the soul and the spirit, where there's more Torah study than there ever has been before in Jewish history in this land. It's unbelievable what's going on. But that is really, it's about us coming into who we are at the core of our identity, at the core of our being. It's our true calling. This goes back all the way to Sefer Yechezkel, one of the last prophets, just after the first Babylonian exile. Some of it was before, some of it was after. Yechezkel is who we really look to amongst, of course, the other prophets, but as the sort of archetype of the third commonwealth, the return of the Jewish people for the third time after the long exile. What's going to happen? Yechezkel says, I'm going to take you from the nation, from all the different countries. I'm going to bring you back to your land. That's where we are right now. That is happening before our very eyes. And this is when it gets into something deeper, something more than just being in the land is going to happen. We're going to become Zarakti Mayim Tehorim on us. We're going to have this purification, this cleaning of who we are. Just like when something goes into the mikvah, it becomes cleansed and has an identity change in many respects. This is what we're talking about. So we're going to have to go to the mikvah. We're not just the body, we're the soul. And what's going to happen? We're going to get a new heart and a new spirit. Something that is a building off of everything that's happened before, but it's going to be so much more than that. We can't even comprehend. A lev chadash, a ruach chadasha, a new spirit, a new heart. Something new has to be birthed within the Jewish people. You're going to dwell on that land, and you're going to be my people, and I'm going to be your God. That is the core of the return, that we become a nation of Hashem, a nation of emanating the wisdom, the godliness that is inherent in our tradition and shining that to the whole world. That is really what we are supposed to be about. And go all the way back to Moshe. When Hashem says to Moshe, I'm going to take you as my people, and I'll be your God. I'm going to bring you to the land. This is what we've always been. We didn't get taken out of Egypt just to be a nation somewhere else, to build a life physically. Of course, that was part of it. We don't want to be slaves anymore. We don't want to be in holocausts anymore. We don't want to be in servitude to genocidal nations. But there's so much more about who we are supposed to be in this world. So much more. And that is what we were talking about as a response, really a response. So let's go back. We're supposed to be a light. We're going to get into what this light is. It's going to be abstract for now, but at least it should be in our awareness that we're supposed to be so much more. So the first words that God says in the Torah, in the name of God. Of course, the Torah is written by Hashem, so it's not the first words. Bereshit bara Elokim is the first words. But the first words from Hashem in the Torah are, Vayomer Elokim yehi or, Vayehi or. God said, let there be light, and there was light. Before there was creation and the 6 days and the day of rest and Shabbat and everything, there was this idea, let there be light. That's, of course, the physical creation. We can get into light and science, whatever. This is a whole other discussion. But before we even do anything, there is this need to be light. And we hear the voice of Hashem telling us, even though this is talking about creation, we hear the voice of Hashem telling us, Yehi or, be an or. And that's why we see later in the Nevuah, the Navi of Yeshaya, the book of Isaiah, the famous words that we're supposed to be. We know this, we've heard this so many times, that Hashem says, why have I made you a people here? Why have I made you a people here? Why have I etnelecha lebrit? Why have I made you and given you a covenant? Simply to be an or legoyim, a light. We have to be a light unto the nations. We need to be emanating light. And then the nations will experience that and see that. We're supposed to be a light unto the nations. That's the essence of being Jewish. And it's this idea that, of course, there's actions that we're supposed to take. We're supposed to take actions. But beyond our actions, we're supposed to be a light. It's going to be a presence that you feel. If you've ever been around special people, there's just a light emanating from them. Not only are we supposed to do what we're supposed to do as Jews as best as we can, but we're supposed to be a light. There's supposed to be some sort of energy radiating off of us and into and pouring into everything we do. Everything that we do needs to be coming from this place of being the light. And then it moves into each actions that we take. And we have lots of actions. We have lots of halachas. And once we have this light, once we're activating this light, and we're not going to get into, that's a whole other world. How do we activate this? But we just need to know that we're supposed to be this light. And one way we, of course, can connect to that light is, as it says in Mishlei, the words of Shlomo HaMelech, Ner mitzvah v'Torah or. The mitzvah is the lamp, is the actions we take, and the Torah is the light. There's something about our relationship to Torah, our connection to Torah, that's supposed to make our mitzvot not just be mitzvot, but it's supposed to make them come to the service and to be or. To be or. So we got to connect to our Torah in a way that it brings out light into who we are. And speaking of the Torah, as we're discussing about being an or goyim, an or legoyim, we have a mission statement. One way of saying it is to be an or legoyim. Another one that comes from the revelation at Sinai, when we received the 10 commandments from Hashem. Before that, we are told exactly what we're supposed to be as Jewish people. This light that emanates into action, of course, and it's summed up in our mission statement, right here. Ushamartem es brisi vayisem lil skula. You're supposed to keep this brit, as they discuss in Isaiah. We discussed this a little bit, to this brit being an or goyim. We're also supposed to be a segula, something special. I actually heard, what's his name? Pesach Stadlin, Rabbi Stadlin. He talks about we're the purple people. Skula is also sagul, purple. And so we're supposed to be this special treasured people when we keep the brit. Ve'atem tiyuli mamlechet kohanim ve'goy kadosh. I look at these words here, a kingdom of priests and a holy nation, as sort of the expansion on being an or legoyim. We're supposed to be a segula, something special, something emanating from us, something beyond. And then we're supposed to be a mamlechet kohanim ve'goy kadosh, a kingdom of priests and a holy people. So the Sforno talks quite a bit about what it is to be this light, what it is to be a mamlechet kohanim. And what does he say? Uvazet tiyu segula mikulam ki tiyu mamlechet kohanim lehavin ulehorot lechol hamin haonoshi likro kulam b'shem Hashem ulabdo shekem echad. What are we really supposed to do as a segula, as a mamlechet kohanim, a kingdom of priests? Just like in the Jewish people, there are priests who are supposed to lead the holy services, the Yom Kippur service. They're supposed to run, the service of God, the avodah shebelev, when we had a temple, the service of the heart. We're supposed to be kohanim to the world. We're supposed to teach the world and instruct them on divine service. Talk to them. Our Torah is supposed to shine as mamlechet kohanim. We're supposed to be something that the whole world learns from. V'goy kadosh. Well, this is just a reality. Bifli bilti nifsadim aval tiyu kayamim la'ad. We're never disappearing. We're kayam. We're forever. We talked about komot, different levels of being. We talked about komot haguf, the body rising, the komot neshama, as we're talking now, this being a spiritual being, a spiritual entity. Why? Kayam la'ad. We're going to endure forever. So just this section is about us being light. Of course, there's actions that we take. We have a mandate. We're supposed to be a mamlechet kohanim v'goy kadosh. We have our Torah, which is supposed to not only make us do actions, but help us emanate light into the world. And this is our contribution to civilization. This is who we are. And this idea, or goyim, mamlechet kohanim, goy kadosh, am segula, different ways of saying we're supposed to be a special people. That's who we are. That's the komot, the awakening, the uprising of our neshama, which is what we're supposed to be in life and especially now. It's our contribution to civilization. Moshe talks a lot to us in the final book of the Torah and says, Lishmor et kol divrei Torah azot. Keep all of this Torah in order to do it, to observe it, because the world is going to see something when you do that. It's hard to believe now with what the world thinks about Israel, and we're going to leave that aside from now, because who we're really supposed to be is that they're going to see what we do. Ushmartem, keep the Torah as best as we can here, ve'asitem, and do it. Ki hi hachmatchem uvenotechem. It's your wisdom and your understanding, le'enei ha'amim, in front of the eyes of the nations. This is your wisdom. This is your understanding. This is your building. Asher yishma'un et kol hachukim ha'ela. They're going to hear your laws and your lifestyle and your life and your light. And they're going to say, Va'amru rak am chacham v'navon hagoy hagadol hazeh. This is a great, wise and understanding nation. Goy gadol, we talked about. Or goyim, a light to nations, a goy kadosh, a holy nation. The same idea. We're going to be a goy gadol. That's who we're supposed to be. And eventually the whole world is going to see that. And then we talk about tikkun olam as sort of our raison d'etre today. We discuss this a lot, and this is really a forward future idea, very powerful, that seems to resonate across the Jewish spectrum. That this idea that we're supposed to be tikkun olam, we're supposed to fix the world, that our actions here are supposed to make a difference. Everything we've just talked about is supposed to create a resonance in the whole world. They're supposed to see and appreciate and understand and learn from us as the Jewish people. And, my Zaidi, who just recently had a wing named after him at Sunnybrook Hospital as an orthopedic surgeon, has contributed so much to the advancement of orthopedic surgery, both in Canada and worldwide. And when he's discussing what it means to him, he's talking about tikkun olam. It's part of his spiritual and religious service. These Jews, we have an instinct to want to do tikkun olam. Why? To b'malchut Shaddai, under God and Hashem's rule. We want to make the world a better place under this God consciousness. And hopefully it will emanate into everything we do, from medicine and everything else. Why? So that the whole world, everything with basar, everything with meat, everything that has a body will call in Hashem's name. That's who we're supposed to be. This is our the core of who we are, the light of who we are. So that we get to a point by Yomahu Yeh Hashem Echad, that at one point Hashem will be one, Ushmo Echad, and his name will be one. Of course, Hashem is always one. But we hope, and we'll get into this later, when we say Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad, that we want there to be one God, that listen Israel, Hashem is our God, Hashem is one. Rashi discusses that it's right now Hashem is one, and right now in the Jewish people we need to make sure that Hashem is one. We need to act with the oneness of Hashem in the world, so that eventually Hashem Echad will be from the whole world. The whole world will recognize, and there'll be a oneness between as above with Hashem and as below in the whole humanity. And that's really what the Jewish people are about. That's who we are and what we're supposed to be in this world. And so that's really what I want to get to before we get into the signs, which are practical ways for us to connect to the light a little bit more. Right now, I just wanted to basically say that our response has to be nothing less. Of course, it's everything I mentioned before, but it has to be nothing less than us doing our best to emanate the light, connect to the Torah, which is our light and guides us. And not only when we do mitzvot, they should be mitzvot, but they should be mitzvot that create in us light and enlightenment. But there should be mitzvot that create in us light and enlightenment, that we become, as we discussed in Yechezkel, a ruach chadash, a new spirit. So that's a little bit for now on who we are at the core of our being and what the response needs to be. So takeaway, remember our deepest purpose. We're going to get much more practical, why we are here for all of humanity.